heart and soul. We're never not alone. What you cared out for, what you cared out for. We die alone, we'll all die young. What you cared out for, what you cared out from. So listen on the bed, whiskey on the bed. Shake it out on lights.
And shalom, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, and we're going to be going through another session today on Romans, to where we're going to be actually picking it up where we left off at, and we left off at on verse 8. So we will be going through that. And what I want to make sure of, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. If you want to join us with the live Zoom side, you can come in on that side. The link is actually right below us. So just make sure that you do everything. I'm trying to switch the camera. So now we have it switched. So now we can actually take care of what we need to. But if you want to make sure you comment, make sure that you go through that one section and come in on that side, because it's easier besides me actually monitoring the YouTube side. So what we left off yesterday, the other day, we was going through Romans, and we stopped at chapter at verse 7, where we was looking at how we was highlighting things and doing different things in there. So we're going to pick it up from there, and I need to go through here to where I'm trying to make sure that I'm up. I thought I actually had this actually taken care of, and I did not. So I do apologize, and we actually have that ready. So, but the main thing is, many of you guys, if you have your workbooks and everything, make sure that you have your workbooks where you can open it up to where you can go through with it. Have your paper, have, any notes that you may want to take, but the notes now that you need to do, you can actually put them directly in this book, which will help you out tremendously. So we're going to pick this up, and we're going to look at some of these things, and we're going to go through to understand exactly the mind of Paul, because we have to understand how Paul was actually addressing issues by letters. And you have to understand, when he knows the perfect order of the fathers and the order of the law, how they mixed it to where he can show the parallel picture to show you exactly what he was trying to do, and why Paul was sent to these Hellenist people, which was Israelites acting like Gentiles. So we're going to look at that. So let me pick this up, and we're going to actually get this going through. And I want to see one thing here and make sure that we are actually pretty good on. And now I'm just trying to get this other part. So we need to pick this up and look at what was going on. So let me put this screen over here. Let me share this with you, and we need to look at that, and we can see it right now. So what we did, picked up from the last time, we did, in all that are in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, or Yahweh Shai, the Messiah. So now we have to pick this up, and we're going to go back, and we're going to pick this up at verse 7, at 8, to where we're going to finish this out, and we're going to go down. So remember, you guys, we have a lot of work to do. So we're going to be going through a lot of work, and if you have questions, I'm going to be stopping periodically, but I'm trying to pick up about 3, 4, 5 verses today, because we have a lot of work to do, because next month, we're going to be kicking in on Israelite weekly scripture studies, which is something that if you haven't got in on it, please do. We'll have a couple of things afterward. If you're not in on this Romans yet, please join in with us, because we're going to be doing a lot of exciting things in here to where you can get the understanding straight by precepts, but then understanding the affiliations and many of the foundational things that we need to do to understand what Paul was saying. And we're going to find out, as we've been going through here, you're finding out that Paul was saying a lot of things, but many people actually talk differently. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at these. So now we're going to pick this up at verse 8. We're looking at verse 8, and it says, first, I thank my God through Yahweh Shai the Messiah for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. So we try to understand what Paul is saying, but we have to understand a couple of things that actually going to fool many people, because we have to see what Paul is talking about, because as he said, he want to first thank God through Yahweh Shai the Messiah for you all, that your faith is spoken through the whole world. So what I want to do, I want to sit there and see what's going on. And we want to see what was going on. Now, I'm going to ask people a couple of questions. And we have one question where he received his Book of Romans workbook, but he's confused on how to use it. Basically, what you're doing, you just following with us, and you actually be putting in the verses and how to actually put in and highlight everything within the workbook. So the workbook is pretty much straightforward. And you see the workbook I actually have up online right now, to where you can go through it. And you see even right here where I got beloved, where we see this, we got saints, we have saints there, and we should also show in peace. That's what we keyed in on, to where you can understand the verse. So what you do, you're going to be following us as we go through, to where we'll be piecing each one together, to where you can see on how to actually use the book, because now you can refer back to it, but you keying in on particular words that is in the verse, to understand how Paul thought about, and how he's pulling the law all the time back from the law, and actually putting it in his conversation and putting it in his epistles or his letters. That's what we're doing. So we have this gentleman, I'm not sure. Do you understand so far? I need to make sure that he completely understands before we move forward. So I want to understand, because we got a lot of work we got to do today. So, and he's saying, now, are you still confused on how the workbook goes? Because you need to input information in the book that we're going to be showing you. That's why I'm going to be walking through it. I'm going to be walking through it with you. So I need to make sure that you understand it. So I know you said you was confused, but I want to make sure that you're not confused. So, okay. So he's saying he's okay. Okay. So what I want you to do is, you're going to go through here. And as we go through here, you're going to see what I'm going to key in on. And then what I want you to do is have a pencil or paper in there. So besides you marking up your Bible, you're going to mark up this workbook. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be putting all your key things. Now, some people might like to transfer a lot of these things, because they're going to end up becoming precepts and many other things. So many people are going to end up transferring it to their Bible, but you could always refer back to your workbook, which is the beautiful thing is, even if you decided to teach on Romans with someone, and you guys want to do it like a study group, you can actually go in there, you can confidently walk in there, and you can tear down each verse, because you're going to have them right here. Technically what you'll be doing. So I just want to make sure that you're not lost, and make sure that you're not confused at any time. So since he's saying he's good, so let's move forward. So we're looking at verse 8. And it says, I thank my God through Yahweh Shai the Messiah. And let me see, I want to sit there and see, let me see the opposite pages. It says the opposite page. Okay, yeah, beautiful part. Okay, it says the opposite pages with all the lines throw me off a little bit, but I'm following along. Okay, don't worry about that. I'm going to show you actually how we're going to work that, because that is where you can do some really deep detail precepts to how you're going to make sure you're going to focus in and go through. So don't worry about that. We're going to take care of that for you. I promise you on that. So let's not worry about that. And that's preceptual paper that's in there to help you through there. So don't worry about that part. We're gonna work that to where you'll see how detailed on how you can make sure everything going to blend in. That's what we're going to do with that. So currently right now, I don't want you to put anything on that preceptual paper. I just want you to put it here, and then we're gonna go from there. So yeah, and I do know that can confuse, because you just open it up and you probably didn't know what it was, but that's all that is. That's preceptual paper. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus in on this. We're going to say, first, I thank my God through Yahweh Shai the Messiah. Now, we need to focus in on what's going on. We have to focus. We have to focus in on what is he saying. What is he saying? Because most of us will not understand what most time he's saying here. So anytime they're saying anything, we always have to focus. I'm trying to get this. Yeah, I'm trying to get that part. We always have to focus in on what he's saying. This is how Paul, he's not doing it in a mischievous way, but Paul is very crafty on how he do things and how he say things. And we have to be very careful and listen to Paul very carefully. So what we got to do, we're going to look here and we're going to look at one of the words we need to key in on out of this text here. We got to key in on the word. And the word we got to key in on, this first one I'm ending up doing for you guys right here. So this first one, we need to highlight. So everybody in your workbooks, you need to highlight through. We need to highlight through. And we're going to find out why. Because we're going to find out through is very serious. Even though it seems like most people will look over it, I'm going to tell you why we can't look over it. And we're going to find out why. So he says, thank my God through. So that's a process of passing through something, sometimes as people, as land, or you passing through a people. So we got to find out what's going on. We have to find out what's going on. So let me set up, and that's what I was trying to do, to make sure we can set up, so I can show you the verses, to where we can look at the verses also, to where you can see them here, besides me just even reading them out. So that's what I was trying to do. That's what I was trying to set up today, to where we can actually look at this, and let me see if I can get this here. So now let me switch over to my to the other side, and let me see if this will work out. And it actually works out pretty good. So let's look at this in its entirety. So we're going to look at this. We're going to look at Genesis chapter 12 and verse 6, because we're going to see an example of how you just passing through, as he's saying, I thank my God through something. It's a process if you're going through something. So we're going to see the example even with Abraham. It said, and now Abram passed through. The same word, but we have to look at the same understanding on what it's saying. Through the land unto the place of Shittim, unto the plains of Moreh, and the Canaanites was then in the land. So he passed through the land. But we're going to look at another one to understand what through actually is, and why we had to key in on through. We're going to look at verse 3. We're looking at verse 3. And watch this key. This is your key right here. And it says, and she said, behold, my maid Bala, go into her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may have children by her. So he wanted her to go into Bala, to where she can have children through Bala. And they was going to be her children, because Bala belonged to Rachel. That's what she was doing. So it's the same thing is what we're doing. We getting our connection through Yahweh the Messiah, through going through him and following his footsteps and what he did. That's what we're doing. So we have to understand that. So now we're going to look at another important part to make sure we're going to tie all this together. And then we're going to mark this in our books to make sure we understand why he says things the way he said it. We're going to go to John. Let's go to John, and we're going to look at John. And we're going to John, and we're going to chapter 10, and we're going to look at verse 7. Now, watch this key. It says, then said Yahweh unto them, again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door. How are you going to get to him? You have to walk through that door to go to him. He is the door. You got to go through the door. And he's telling you, I am the door. That's why he's saying through Yahweh the Messiah. That's why he's saying that. Now watch this. We're going to drop down to verse 9. He says, I am the door. Again, by me, if any man enter, you coming through, he shall be saved and shall go in and out and find pasture. You follow it? You follow that? So we understand that you have to go through something to achieve the goal, what you're looking for. You have to do this, and if not, you will not get everything that you're looking for. So we know here, in here, we got to put in through. So we're going to put through in, and now we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to put in Genesis, and we're going to go to 12 and verse 6. I can do this one. We're going to look at 30 and verse 3. And we're looking at John 10, 7, and 9. So what's that? What does this mean? Then you passing through something as land or a person. That's what it should look like on yours. This is what it should look like. Through. Why? This is what we have to key in on. We have to key in on this. We have to key in on this here. So as we were passing through, that's why he says, when you look here, he says, I thank my God through. Why? Because he was the door. He was the door to where you can get to the Most High. That's why we key in on that. Most people don't look at that, but we have to key in on this. Now we're going to look at Yahweh the Messiah, but then it says that your faith. So this is something else that we already have, we keyed in on. So what we're going to do, I don't need that no more. Okay, so what we got to do is put in what faith is. We already have it at the top, but we're going to reiterate it here. And faith is the main thing. Faith is the main thing. What we got to do is believe, and it's a belief. Meaning what? We're going to look at a couple of verses. We got to look at a couple of verses to understand how this believe and believe works. We got to understand, when we're looking at Paul, we're always going to look at the mechanics on Paul, so we can understand what Paul is saying. Because if not, we'll lose what Paul is saying. We'll lose the entire context on what Paul is saying. So we got to key in on Paul. So let's go back over here. We're going to look at some scriptures again to understand, to really key in on Paul. So what we're going to look at, let's go to Deuteronomy. We're going to look at Deuteronomy. We're going to look at some law. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 32. We're going to look at 32. And we're going to look at verse 20. We're going to look at verse 20. And it says, and he said, let me see, 32, verse 20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. So he said he will hide my face. I will see what their end shall be, and they are very forward generation. Why? Children in whom is no faith. Why? Because we wasn't having the belief or based on what he was saying, and so we wasn't having faith in what he was doing. So when he told us what to do, we didn't have no faith in it. Basically, we didn't have no belief, because if you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. And that's why he was making that statement. Now let's look at another statement here. We're going to go to Genesis, and we're going to look at 15. We're going to look at 15 in verse 3. And watch this. And it says, and Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed. So he was telling the Most High, you haven't given me no seed. You haven't given me anything to where I can see. He said, and lo, one born in my house is my heir. So he's telling the Most High, the one that's born in his house is going to be end up being the heir, which was one of his servants. And it says, and behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thy heir, but he shall come forth out of thy own bowels, shall be thy heir. So he's clearly telling him, this child is going to come directly out of your bowels, not coming from somewhere else. But he also made sure he made Abraham really clearly understood, because he said Sarah was going to have a son. So he was saying that Sarah is going to be producing the son, so he's going to be going into Sarah even at that old age. And what happened, and this is the problem even with Islam, because Islam still look at Ishmael, because Sarah had Abram to go into who? To Hagar. That was not the promise that was here. That was not the faith that was here. That was not the belief system that the Most High set up right here. He said, it's going to come out of your own bowels. He said that we can sit there and we can pencil, and that's lock solid. However, he said, Sarah should have a son. Sarah, his wife. He didn't say nothing about Hagar. If he would have said out of your own bowels and left it at that and never mentioned Sarah, then we could be looking at Ishmael. Then that's when Ishmael could have played a very serious part. But he made that clear that he's going to come through your wife. So he's going to go into Sarah even at her old age, and then went in there and Sarah laughed, but he still proved the point. Let's move forward. It says, and he brought forth bread and said, look now towards heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them, he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. Now watch this. And he who, Abraham, believed in Yahweh. So he had that faith and he had that belief that that was going to happen. That was the faith what he was doing. See, and they tell you, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Why? Because Abraham believed what the Most High said. He believed what the Most High said. That's the faith part that you gotta remember. Let's look at another part. We're gonna go somewhere else and get the understanding of what's going on. We're gonna go to Romans chapter 3. We're gonna go to Romans chapter 3, and we're gonna pull a little bit more, and we gotta get this. Romans chapter 3, we're gonna start at verse 1. We're gonna start at verse 1. And it says, what advantage then hath the Jew, understand what he's saying, that the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision? So what profit is it of circumcision? Now watch how you do. Much verily way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. For what if some did not, again, believe? What if some didn't believe? Should their belief make faith in God without effect? You see how he's pulling that? So if the Most High tells you something and then you don't believe it, is that going to change the outcome? This is what Paul is saying. So if God told you something's going to come to pass that you read in the book and then you don't believe it, and you sitting there, well, I'll tell you what, no, I don't believe this. Is that going to change it? Should that make the Bible a lie? He tell you, God forbid, verse 4. No, it's still going to happen. Even though you technically don't believe it, and the Most High gave you that vision and you don't believe it, do that change the outcome? No, the outcome's still going to happen. That's what he's saying. So he said, let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written, that thou mightest be justified in the sayings and mightest come over when thou art judged. So this is all he's saying here. So he's making sure this is clear. So many people will go in the Bible, and you know, a lot of people even do this even today. They'll sit there and say, well, I don't believe all parts of the Bible. You know, I believe some stuff, and because it's written by man, and this, it's a lot of heresy that's going through there, because the Spirit of God was on those men that written these, because these prophets and scribes wrote those. But this is what happens. So we have to understand, when you read the Bible and we study it, if you don't believe one part of it, you might as well just fold the Bible up and just stop reading it, because it's still going to happen on what you read. Now, the only difference is, a lot of people say, well, I don't understand the Bible because the Bible says a lot of weird stuff. The Bible is written in parables, dark speeches, and riddles. That's how the Bible is written. So what happens is, most people, and you have other men, has taken the Bible and they tried to, well, really many of them just philosophize it, and then they end up doing what they do best. They theorize it, what I call it, because they use theology to give you the best interpretation on how they see what is technically is saying. That's what they're doing. So if they thinking, well, it says this, and they can get a bunch of people to agree with it, then so be it. And then they will put that in commentaries and different things, and people will look at it. So that's where you see the seminaries and all those stuff pops up, and these theology degrees pops up, because what they're doing everything based on a theory. Theories is what is going on. So let's drop down, and we're going to look at it a little bit more. Let's drop down to verse 22. Let's look at verse 22. And it says, even the righteousness of God, now, which is, this is all italicized, so it's really not there. So it says, with the righteousness of God by faith, by belief of Yahweh Shai the Messiah, which is still not saying what most people think it's saying, but we're going to see this in a little while. And it says, unto all and upon all them that believe. Believe in faith is working together, because they one and the same. For there is no difference. Exactly the point. Is no difference. Believe in faith is the same as I said. If you could tell a child something, and that parent told that child, I'm going to do this, that's what's going to happen. So now somebody else can come along and tell this child something different. That child might not say anything to you, because it could be scared, thinking you might reprimand that child for whatever reason. However, that child still know when the parent comes, that child still going to receive, because that child believed on what that parent told them. That's why he keeps telling you, you have to come to him as a little child, because a child faith, when their parents tell them something, and their parents always came through on what they said would happen, you pretty much, you cannot break that child faith. It's you wasting your time. So let's look at one other place. We're gonna go to 2 Corinthians. We're gonna look at 2 Corinthians, and we're gonna look at one other thing here. Let me get there. 2 Corinthians, and we're gonna look at chapter 4, verse 13. Chapter 4, it says, we having the same spirit, so we all having the same spirit of faith, according as it is written, I believe, and therefore have I spoken. We also believe, and therefore speak. So if you have this belief, knowing that which raised up the Lord Yahweh Shai, Messiah, raised up also Yahweh Shai by Jesus, and shall present us with you. So he's telling you clearly everything that is straightforward. So we have to go back now, and we have to put this in there. And let me put this in there, where we're going to put this in there now. So we need to put this belief in what we have in Deuteronomy. I'm going to do a shortcut on that one, so it won't take up too much. 32 and 20. And we're going to look at Genesis 15, 3 through 6. We have Romans. I'm going to abbreviate 3, 1 through 4, and 22. And 2 Corinthians. And we got 4 and 13. So we have those there to where we're looking at the faith. So when we have that highlighted, we're looking at faith. We're looking at faith, but we have one more we got to look through. So before I move forward, I want to make sure, because we're going to push through, because we got to push through a couple other verses before I shut down today. So we got to go through a couple of verses. But I do want to know, do anybody have any questions before we move forward? Because we got to get down to at least verse 11 today, at least verse 11. So are there any questions? Do we have any questions on any side? Right now I'm looking in backside of the participants that is in the Zoom room, and I see no hands there, and I don't see anyone asking questions on YouTube. So I don't see anyone. So far, so good. Okay. So we got Sister Brenda. She's clear. So no questions. No questions. Look like we trying to see, make sure. I'm getting ready to start back. So far, so good. So far, so good. Okay. So I see no questions. So let's push forward. We got to push forward. And it's going once for YouTube. Going twice. And let's push forward, you guys. So let's move forward and let's see what's happening. Now, we have another part we have to actually look up. Now, this is why it's really going to get real controversial. It's going to get real controversial, but we have to prove the point on any time, because the last part in this one verse, we have to prove something, because he said that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. The whole world. So we need the whole world on what he's saying. So what is he actually saying here? What is he actually saying here? So this is where many people find out where the issues are, because they overlook Paul, and Paul is very blunt on what he's saying all the time. He's very, very, very blunt. And we got to prove that point, because either he talking about the whole world as a whole, or is he talking about particular people? So I'm going to say it again. Is he talking about the whole world as a whole, all people, all nations, all everything, or is he talking about a particular people? I was just told the other day where a person was sitting there saying, well, the front of the book is just to Israel, but the back of the book is to everybody. I was actually told that, which is still a lie, but that's what they believe. So we have to prove the point. We have to prove the point here on who he is saying to the whole world. So let's go back over here to the Bible, and we have to prove the point. So what we got to do, we're going to go through here and we're going to look at it, and we're going to get the understanding exactly what it was saying. So we got to go through a couple of parts. So first, what we got to do, and we're going to come back, we got to mark this in our Bible. We're going to mark this in the workbooks, but we have to first go through here and understand. So the first place we're going to look at, we're going to go to John 3:16. We're going to look at John 3:16. John 3:16. And it says, for Yahweh, or God, so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, mean his servant. So he gave his only begotten servant. However, but people sit there, well, say son, but servant, we're going to still prove the point. He said, gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So God so loved the world. Paul saying this word had to be spoken throughout the whole world. So we have to find out what this world is. We need to find out what the world is, according to what Paul is saying. See, because Paul is not tripped up on the doctrine. Paul understands what he's saying, but do we understand what Paul is saying? So we have to understand what the world is according to scripture, not according to me, not according to elder such and such, not according to bishop, whoever, not according to apostle, whatever, not according to anyone, but according to what the Bible says. Because the Bible is always going to be the final authority. So if the Bible is the final authority, we have to go based on what the Bible is saying. So we have to go look somewhere. We have to look in some places to understand what is it, because he's saying the world. He's clearly making sure the world. So we're going to go to 2nd Esdras. We got to look at 2nd Esdras, and we're going to go to chapter 14. 2nd Esdras, chapter 14. We're going to drop down to verse 11. We're going to look at verse 11. It says, for the world is divided into 12 parts. So now the world, with the same understanding that Paul has, is even stated here by Esdras or Esdras, is divided into 12 parts. And the 10th parts of it is gone already, which is talking about 10 of those tribes, which it goes back in the 1 Kings. So we know the world now is divided into 12 parts. So the Most High have divided the world to his understanding, to what he sees, into 12 parts. That's what he's saying. So at no time where we can take it and say, well, he said that there. He said this here, but he said this over here. If he said this here, right here, what we're looking at right here with 2nd Esdras, if he says this right here, and this is how you have to look at it. Let me do this here again. Okay, so if you look at that, and if the world is divided into 12 parts here, but later people say in the New Testament, he's talking about the whole world, then it makes this a lie. Why? Because this is why he'll make this a lie. If you go to Psalms 89 in verse 34, he says he will not alter which have gone out of his lips. He says that. So he also says in Malachi 3 and 6, but I am the Lord, I change not. So if he changes from what this statement is right here, then the entire book will be null and void. The entire book is null and void. Then this piece right here is a lie. So either this part going to be a lie, if he's talking about the entire world, then this is a lie. And then we know Psalms 89:34 is a lie. We know Malachi 3 and 6 is a lie. See, that's the catch. But then why, and most people want to understand sometimes, man, you speak boldly when you say that, you know, you it's almost like you cursing God. No, I'm not cursing God, because this is what he's saying. He's saying he's not changing. So if he didn't change, and he said the world into him, not to anyone else, to him, and he's the only one that matters, it's divided into 12 parts. He's making that clear. But let's look at it a little bit more. We got some other stuff we have to look at to make sure. We're going to go to 2nd Esdras chapter 5. Let's look at some other things. Chapter 5, we're going to drop down to verse 23. And we're going to look at some things to understand what he's saying. We're going to look at some things, because some people even said, and I done heard this already too, where people said, well, I'll tell you what, if God is like that, if he's like that, how can he just do the whole world and then so many people? And what we have to remember is the same thing is, and I give people always that analogy, when you buy, you know, big TVs, big screen TVs, and, you know, all kind of things, you're going to find it, it's going to be in a big box. It's always going to come in a big box, You're going to have a lot of like cellophane plastics in there to protect the one thing that you bought in there. It's going to protect that one item. So it's protected. You got all kinds of things surrounding it. But after you unopen the box and you take that out of there, what you purchased with your money, you're going to get rid of the box as well as the stuff that protected it. You're getting rid of both of them. The box is gone, the stuff is in there. Same as God, same as what he's doing. No different. So let's look at this. Let's look at 23. And it says, the Lord that beareth rule, he's running everything, of every wood of the earth, of every wood of the earth, and of all the trees thereof, thou hast chosen one only vine. So you can go outside. We can go in many different states. You can go look at many different places. You can go look anywhere in the world, and you can see thousands, if not millions, different varieties of flowers and vines and trees and everything. And he's telling you, he's chosen one. He said he chose one vine. But he goes on more. And of all lands, the whole world, hast thou chosen the one pit. Out of all the land, he chose one pit. And of the flowers, thereof one lily. So, and we know they have flowered, but they have flower shows. I believe they call them flower shows or different things. Out of all these thousands and thousands of flowers, you can see from all different parts of the world, probably goes into the millions of different flavors of flowers. He's saying he chose one. He chose one lily, one particular type of lily. He goes on more. And of the depths of the sea, thou hast filled thee. So all the depths of all these seas, he filled one river. One. River here is talking about people. So he filled one river with his word, which you'll see in Jeremiah 30, 31, 33. One river. Not in all rivers. One river. See, and people sit there, well, depending on how you look at it. No, you look at it for what it's saying. He's saying one river. He said, and of all built cities, thou have hallowed Zion unto thyself. So he hallowed Zion unto thyself. And of the fowls that are created, thou hast named thee one dove. One. Out of all the fowls, he named one dove. And of all the cattle that has thy proveth thee, so out of all the cattle that he had made, thou hast proveth thee, he provided thee, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm sitting there. He provided thee one sheep. One sheep. And among all multitude of peoples, it's right here. Out of all multitude of people, every nation, every creed, every color that you can think of, thou hast gotten thee one people. But people will sit there and say, we're all one. We're all one nation under God. That's a lie. That's what Greeks do. And to show you that that's a lie, you go try to go somewhere and look at the racism today. Look at the hatred of one people against another people. See, even examples on not even how they treat us, but you can see examples on how they're taking people, children, who had came over here to try to find better things for their lives, and then they cage them like animals. And he's telling you clearly here, he gotten one people. And unto this people whom thou lovest, John 3:16, thou hast giveth a law that is approved of all. One law. So we need to prove that. He gave them one law. So we need to understand what he's saying. He given them one law. So we have to look at that. We need to look at this. So we're going to go to Psalms. And we're going to go to 147. And let's go down to 19 and 20. Let's see, is this, because he said he gave one law to these people. And it says, he showed his word unto Jacob, his statute and his judgment unto Israel, the children that came out of Jacob. He have not dealt so with any nation. Exactly what he was saying that Idris just quoted. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. But as he said, we don't do what we say doing. This is why Paul went to Rome, because when he went to Rome, he was talking to Israelites that are in Rome. When he went to Corinth, he was in Corinth because he was talking to Israelites that was in Corinth. But we're gonna take care of all that. So we see here where he gave us judgments for us to know them. But let's see how hard-headed we are as a whole people. So we're going to look at Amos chapter 3, verse 1, just proving the point on this one people in who he sees the world. And it says, hear this word of the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel. We just seen in Psalms where he said, this is who he was talking to from the beginning. He said against the whole family, which against all Israel, because it's 12 tribes, which he's telling you is divided into 12 parts. And he's against every one of us, not against us as he want to just kill all of us. What he's doing, we have made a covenant, and how that happens is our forefathers made a covenant with him and they all agreed upon it. So what they have done, we inherited that. We inherited their covenant. So we're being punished for everything that has been done and everything that they have done. We've been punished until we can turn that around and do the works that is meant for repentance and straighten that out. So, but he says, against the whole family, I brought you out of the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for your iniquity. So you only, because just as he said, it's the silhouette picture as you see with a husband and a wife. This is why you see Israelite men say what they say, talking about they can have many wives, and you see the Most High sitting here. We done seen in too many places already where he's talking about one people. So if you have more than one wife, they're not doing it according to what God even doing. But what they want to do, they want to base it on what fleshly men have done, because as you go back and they use Solomon and they use David and some of, oh yeah, see, what the Most High didn't do anything to them. Okay, why are you basing it on the man? The Most High said don't multiply wives. If he said don't do that, then don't do it. But you looking at not what God's saying, you looking at what your flesh want because you want more women. So that's the key. And right here, he's telling you. So when people sit there and tell you, well, God make it for all nations, now you saying God is a whore. That's really what you're saying. It's not sugarcoating it. It's not, he's a fornicator, he's a whore, then he should be killed. And this how bold you can make that statement, because he's telling you right here, he do not change. He said, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. He gave us one law to them. He's proven his point to you. Now, let's go back and we're going to look at the main thing. Let's look at what Paul said. See, because most people sit there and say, well, Paul still went to the Gentiles. But let's see and understand who Paul went to. So we have to prove all this, and then we got to put this in our workbook. So we're going to go to Acts 26. So don't worry about, because we're going to come back, we're going to put it all in the workbook. So don't worry about that part, but I'm just showing you before we put it in there. So we're going to go to 26, Acts 26, verse 6 and 7. However, I'm going to read up, but we're going to use 6 and 7. But some of you guys might want verse 1 through 7. But I'm going to do 6 and 7. So, but I'm going to do 1 because we want everybody to know. So if someone come in later talking about, no, Paul is talking to everybody, we're going to see what Paul's talking about. We're going to see why Paul spoke to King Agrippa, because he wanted to speak to King Agrippa for a reason. It says in verse 1, it says, then Agrippa said to Paul, thou art permitted to speak for thyself. So now Agrippa, who is the king there, he's saying, okay, Paul, if you want to speak, I'm going to allow you to speak. And Paul stretched forth his hand and answered for himself. I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because thou shalt answer for myself this day before thee, touching all things wherefore I am accused of the Jews. So he's happy about it because what he was doing, he was going around preaching that this man was resurrected. And that's what got Paul. That's why they called him Christians first time in Antioch. But that's beside the point. But watch what happens. Verse 3, it says, especially because I know thee to be expert. That's why he wanted to talk to King Agrippa. That's why he wanted to talk to King Agrippa. You don't put that in your notes, but you just, that's information the way you have to where you're learning about our people. We have to know who our people is. We don't know because we've been alienated from them for so many years. We don't even know they are. So we're learning about them. But King Agrippa is expert in all customs, questions which are among the Jews. Wherefore I beseech thee to hear me patiently. This is why he wanted to talk to King Agrippa. Why? Because King Agrippa is an expert in this. Now he says, my manner of life from youth, which I was first among my own nation in Jerusalem, know all the Jews. So Paul's still telling you all the Jews, but let's see if Paul going to change that conversation. Which know me from the beginning, if they would testify that after the most strictest set. Now he's telling you, and the reason he's in the most strictest set, Paul and them were like, they wasn't the ones you want to play with. They will get you killed in a heartbeat. Why? They knew the perfect order of the law of the fathers as well as the perfect order of the laws of God. And they knew how to mix them. They know how to mix them to get you killed. And they knew what they was doing. That's the worst part. They knew exactly what they was doing. But let's move forward. It says, for our religion, I lived a Pharisee. And that's what he was living, as a Pharisee. Why? Because he was holding more to the laws of the fathers, not to the laws of God. That's why he was a Pharisee. It says, now I stand and I am judged for the hope and promise. If you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you will be a peculiar treasure unto me, for all the world is mine. Keep that in mind. You see, I go back and I'm pulling conversations that the Most High said, and this is how Paul thinks. So he said, for the hope and promise made to God of our fathers. And that's what the promise made. If you keep the covenant, do everything, you'll be good. Watch this, verse 7. Unto which promise are 12 tribes. The world is divided into 12 parts. I'm telling you right there. So Paul didn't go to anybody else. Paul was going to the 12 tribes where people were being Hellenists. And we're going to find this more as we go deeper. This is what was going on. Instantly serving God day and night, hope to come, for which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews. So we know here what's the problem. So now we need to see something else that's going on. Let's look at Yahweh and let's see what some statements that he made. Because all of them made statements. All of them made statements, but people have a problem with statements that are made. We're going to look at Matthew 15:24. 15:24. And it says, and this is Yahweh talking, I'm using a Bible I actually study with. I do not normally see, you will not see mine really in red because red was actually put in by other people. And we should know when Yahweh is talking and when he's not. So you don't see my Bibles. I do not have them in red. But it looks here. It says, but he answered and said, who? Yahweh, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's all he was sent to. But people are sitting there and he's telling you bluntly this right here. But people are still saying he's going to the whole world. And we just seen the whole world and how the Most High sees it. It's 12 tribes, one lily, one tree, one dove, everything. So what we have to do, we have to input this into over here. Let me move that over and understand. And this is where a lot of people have problems. A lot of people have problems here. And we have to understand what is all going on. So we want to understand exactly what is happening. So what we want to do, we want to go in here, we want to understand, we want to see what's happening. So now we're going to put in the world, the whole world. And we gotta put this in there. And now we're going to put in John 3:16, and I'm just going to put in abbreviation, John 3:16. We're going to put in 2nd Esdras 14, verse 11. We're going to put in, actually, I can put in verse 11. I can also put in that same way, put in 5, 23 to 28. Now we're going to put in Psalms 147, 19 and 20. We also going to put in Amos 3, 1 and 2. And we also going to put in Acts 26, 6 and 7. And just as some kickers, you can also put in James 1 and 1. Because James 1 and 1, I tell you, when I read it, I'm going to read it to you. Well, we won't pull it up, but I just read it to you. James 1 and 1, it tell you, now this is Yahweh's brother. It says, James, a servant of Yahweh and of our Lord Yahweh the Messiah, to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, greetings. Actually, better I show it to you, to where people won't think we're trying to pull something over on anyone. So it's easy to show it to you, to prove the point, to where it won't be no questions later. So we're looking at James 1 and 1, and it says, James, a servant of Yahweh and of our Lord Yahweh the Messiah, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. So he's not speaking as they per se speaking to everybody. He's speaking to the 12 tribes. They are scattered. This is the ones he's talking to. So this is why most people really like to get confused and always saying, no, he's addressing everybody. And he is not. He's addressing certain people. So we're going to also add James. We're going to do 1 and 1. And we see right there what we have. And since they were scattered, if you want, some people might want to put in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, based on that. But we see here now what we have through, we have faith, and we have the whole world. We have everything that Paul keyed in on. And this is what we're going to do, because we have faith going through the same life pattern and everything else as Yahweh did. But then we had to have that faith. We had to have that belief system intact. If not, we're going to have a problem. And the world is speaking of you. This is why you're placed in the place that you are in right now. This is why we hate it without a cause. Because now, even as you see, and actually, you don't sit there and see where people sit there where Yahweh is black, God is this, God is, they can say whatever they want to say. However, he chosen one people. But most people sit there, same thing they like to say with Yahweh, the man, they want to sit there and say, well, he had no color. So I don't know how that is. But the main thing is now that many people are waking up, now they say that color doesn't matter. If color doesn't matter, tell them to remove all the pictures, all the paintings, all the images of this fake white man. And I guarantee they won't do it. So that's the problem. But they'll tell you color doesn't matter, but they want to keep that there. Why? Because it's there to put the illusion, to keep that embedded in your head. Also, when you see the man Jesus, you see an image. So let me stop right here for a second and let me see, do anyone have any questions so far before we move forward? So right now, I know we're good in the back room, and I don't know on YouTube. So before we move forward, I need to see, because we're going to move over to verse 9 and 10, but I need to make sure everybody is good so far. Is everybody good so far? So if we have any questions in the back, please put up your hand. If you have any questions on YouTube, please post your question. If not, we will move forward. So we have no questions in the back. So I'm looking at the ones for YouTube. It looks like YouTube, we are good. So I'm gonna give you guys about 20 more seconds, and hopefully if you guys don't, then what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna move forward. I'm refreshing and look like we're going to move forward. Let's push forward, you guys. So let's move on forward. Let's push it back up. We're going over here to verse 9. I'm just double checking to make sure. We're looking at verse 9. So I need everyone to turn to your next page on verse 9 to where we're going to push forward. And we're going to sit there and we're just going to put some clarifications there to make sure that we understand what is happening. So we got to look at this. It says, "For Yahwah is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his son," or his servant, "without ceasing, I make mention of you always in my prayers." So this is what he's saying. So 1 second, it said, well, it said, was the king Paul spoke to a Pharisee like Paul? No, he wasn't. But he was an expert in what Paul was talking about. He was very intrigued about what Paul did. Well, what they did. Very intrigued of what the Jewish people did. So that's what he did. When he looked at what all the Jews was doing and everything, he was highly interested, and he was very well known of what they did. And so basically, and another reason why I take out people who try to answer for that, a lot of these people, I do not need you to help or assist me in the teaching, for the simple fact is I don't know who you are. I don't know where your thinking pattern might be coming from. So we do not allow people over here to teach anybody that's in here in the comment section. So if you want to do that, then you have channels to where you can do that. But since we don't know who you are, we don't know where your thought pattern come from, and we allow that to continue, we don't know what things you might say to where, because we don't know what your doctrine actually is. So we just here, we teach Bible, and that's technically what we do here. So we appreciate you don't try to give an answer in here based on what you think or based on what your doctrine is, because I don't know what your doctrine is. So I can't validate your doctrine. So that way, if I did validate it, just letting it go through there, then we can end up having issues later. Because then if you start posting stuff that where I done let through a lot of other stuff, then we can end up having issues. So that's why we delete them. So we delete them out, and we just want this to just go through. So we're looking at verse 9. We're going through verse 9. We're looking at verse 9, and it's telling you the servant. So first, we got to look at the witness. So we have to understand first what witness means. We need to understand what witness means. So we just need to validate some of these words. That's technically all we need to do. So we need to put in witness, and we need to know what witness means. Testify and in testimony. That's all witness means. That's all it means. So when you see this in other places, you'll know what that means. We just need to validate it. Now, and then what we'll do, we'll also highlight witness to where we have witness validated. So now we also have another one that we actually also need to validate, because most people always think it means good news and it actually don't. Gospel. So we need to do gospel. Gospel only means a message. He was bringing a message. That's why you sit there and see he brought that message. So that's why you see most people sit there saying, oh, it's the good news. And you see on the Christian side, they'll say something, the good news, and they say all you have to do is believe in the gospel and you're good. No, he said you come to this message and you remember what you guys were doing, and you need to turn from what you were doing and do what was meant for repentance, meaning you need to remember what you were doing so you don't go back and do that junk that you was doing. That's the message. So we need to see the other one that's going through here. So we need to look at these and we need to understand what's going on. So this is why it says his son. And as I said, we need to validate that a little bit. So I am going to validate this some. So this means servant. And how do we know? We're going to look at Zach. We're going to go to 3 and 8. We got to look at that. And you can see this all through the Bible. You'll see this all through the Bible, but we're going to look at this real quick just to validate it, to make sure, just in case some people sit there and, oh, that's not what it means. So if he's saying his son, we know he's going to say the same thing in the Old Testament by the prophets. It will say the identical thing in the prophets. So we're going to go to Zechariah chapter 3. Zechariah chapter 3, we're going to verse 8. It says, hear now, O Yahweh. So even his name was back here. And his name is actually in other parts of the Old Testament where Yahweh name is. And it says the high priest. And you won't see no other high priest but this one. And it says, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, that thou art men wondered at, behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch. So we know clearly he is a servant. Same as he'll tell you for my servant Moses. He'll tell you for my servant Abraham. He'll tell you for all these things. And I do have a question in the back, and you are live to where you can actually ask your question. And this is Sister Dana. Sister Dana?
I'm sorry. I don't have a question. I must read it by accident.
Okay. No problem. And so what we understanding now is that we have people that will tell you that in the New Testament, when they saying sons, they believe sons, physical believing sons, and the Most High is looking for servants. But people sit there, oh no, I'm a son. No, he's saying servant. He says servant all through the Bible. So how is it that Moses, Abram, Isaac, Jacob, how all these people became servants, and then we is the shadiest people on the earth, but then he gonna make us sons? It's crazy, but this is what we do. We believe what we want to believe. Why? Because we are taught in an incorrect way. And we need to understand the words that is being used in the Bible to understand what is being said in the Bible. So let's move forward. We're going to go down to verse 10. Verse 10. We got to look at verse 10 and see what verse 10 is saying. So it says, making requests, if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. So we need to know what we need to know. We need to know something. So verse 10 is what? We have to understand now. One we got to do is one part. See, most people when they look at this as a whole, we have to know what words are meaning, because we got to look at words for what they meant back then, not what words mean today. So we have to look at what words mean back then to understand what this means. So the first one is in making requests. If by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey. So with this, the first thing you have to do is look at length. The first thing you have to look at. So we got to look at length and we got to see what it says. So we need to know what length means. So what do that mean? So it says, if by any means now at last I meant to have a prosperous journey. That's all he was actually saying. So that's all that actually means. Length means now at last. So since he already got that there, you just can remove that and just say, if by any means now at last I might have a prosperous journey, because this is the focal point on the statement of what you see in length. So that's how that actually works. And this is actually how Hebrew is constructed, as well as you'll see most time Greek. Most people will tell you Greek is the perfect language, which is not. Actually, Hebrew is, but that's beside the point. But you'll have Gentiles tell you Greek is the perfect language. But that again is a whole bunch of hogwash. So now we have to have the other one that actually goes through, and we have to look at the other one that is highlighted is the will. We're going to look at will. Why? Because will, we need to understand what will mean. Will equal desire. Why? Because it's telling you by the desires of God to come unto you. That's all he's saying. And actually, you can even do it this way. You can add it there. So sometimes it might be desired, but you can go either way. So now you can sit there and you can look at this and understand exactly what it's saying all the time. So those are the two main things that you focus in on, because mainly everything else is just sitting there, and its context, and the context is actually wrapped around these two. It's being last, I might be prosperous, and we have the desires of God. So that's how you actually look at that. And well, I don't want to confuse you, so I was going to show you something else, a technique that I actually use, but I'm not going to, because it'll probably confuse many people, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to go down to verse 11. We're going to look at the verse 11 and seeing what verse 11 is saying, because verse 11 is why I said we got to put some work in. We have to put this work in verse 11, because verse 11, he is saying a mouthful. Verse 11 and we'll get to verse 14. That's the verse that we have to push, so we got to do a little bit of overtime, you guys, but we got to get this out. We got to get this out. So verse 11, it says, for I long to see that I may impart unto you some spiritual gifts, to the end that you may be established. You see that? He longed to see you. So he's desiring to see you. That's all he's really saying. But he wanted to impart some spiritual gifts. So, do anything need to be gone here? And I'm going to show you something that's going to actually shock you. That's what you need to take care of. Why? To see you, and it's mean that's all he's saying. Desiring to see you that I may impart some spiritual gifts. That's all he's actually saying. So to long is he's just desiring to see you. That's all he's technically saying. Now, the rest of this is just going to kind of run through. So we're going to look at this in verse 12 it says, that is that I may be comforted together with you by mutual faith, by mutual belief, both you and me. So we need to have this mutual belief. That's why he's saying that. Let's drop down to verse 13. Verse 13, and this is where we're going to start getting into some nitty-gritty stuff in 1 second. It says that I would not have you ignorant. Understand what he's doing. Ignorant. I would not have you ignorant, and oft times to propose to come unto you, but was let hitherto that I might have some fruit among you, even among the Gentiles. Even among the Gentiles. So these Gentiles here is telling you about a particular people, but it's still telling you about, which we're going to find now, it's still talking about Israelites. And these are people who been Hellenists, which we're going to find out, because this is the main part we need to figure out on what's going on. So you can see on these here, this here you don't have to worry about, because he's still building this up to get here. That's why I say sometimes, even when you see in the Precept Study Bible, you'll see scriptures to where you won't see nothing below there, because I want you to read it just as it is. But the people have those reference type Bible, and they have everything referenced, and it'll have you running all over the place, believing all kind of craziness. But it don't help you out whatsoever. But this is where the problem becomes, because this is where the issue is on a lot of people, and this is where we have to put in some work. So we want to make sure we get ready to put this work in. We got to make sure that we're going to do what we need to be doing. So what is going on? It says, I am debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and the unwise. So he was actually repeating itself. Why? Because you got Greeks and you have barbarians. What is he saying? So first we're going to look at one thing. He said he's a debtor. This is what he is. So he's obligated. That's all he's saying. So this is what. So he's just letting you know he's obligated. I am obligated both to Greeks and to the barbarians. That's what he said. So we want to understand, make sure everybody understand that as a whole. So when you conflict those words and understand what it means, when you know what it means, now you can understand where Paul coming from. Because when he said, I'm a debtor to both the Greeks and the barbarians, but now he's talking about the same two, Greeks and barbarians. That's all he's talking about in this verse right here. That's it. And then he's talking about one of them is wise and one of them is unwise. But we got to find out why. We got to find out why he's saying that. And we're going to find out because both of them are in present of him right there. So we need to understand what a Greek is. We got to understand when he's talking to, and we know when we just went to Acts, we know he's talking to Israelites who was acting like Greeks. Actually, I got to put Greeks there. You got to put S, Greeks there. And what they were saying, you'll see this quite a bit. You see this right here. Grecians. Grecians. What are Grecians? We're going to figure out what those Grecians are. We're going to figure out what these Grecians are. Now, we're going to put some other ones. And then we're going to start putting it all together. Barbarians. Barbarians. Why is he calling them barbarians? We're going to find out both. We're going to find out something real interesting today. We're going to find out some real interesting things today where people don't really, they look over the verses. And like I said, you can't just look them over. And then it's very important not to go into commentaries because it'll run you into too many crazy places. But Grecians in barbarians, Grecians in barbarians, Grecians right here, you'll see this. Hellenists, if you sit there and you look up true Greek and you look up Grecian, you're gonna see that right there. Hellenists. Hellenists. What do that actually mean? These are Jews acting like Hellenists, one who participates in Greek culture, but not authentic Greeks or Gentiles. That's what a Hellenist is. That's what a Grecian is. So you have Jews was defined as Hellenists. And that's how true, authentic Greeks seen them. See, and the Bible calls them Grecians. Let's look at this. We got to let's go back over and we got to see why they saying that. So we got to go back over to the Bible and we got to sit there and see it. So we're going to look at some places and we're going to see where they being called Hellenists, but they're being called Grecians. We're going to go to Acts. We got to go to Acts. And we're going to look at 9:29. 9:29. And it says, and he spake boldly in the name of Yahweh the Messiah, and disputed against the Grecians. And all he's saying is Hellenists. He disputed against the Hellenists. Jews acting like they somebody else. And we have people do that today. We got many people in sororities, and in most sororities, if you came out of a college and you was a part of a sorority, guaranteed it was tied to Greeks. And it makes you a Grecian. That's what it actually does. And it says, but they went about to slay him. Why? It was Grecian. And Paul in here talking this craziness to them. So this is what the Bible calls them. It calls them Grecians. You'll see this name again when you look at Acts 11:20. Let's go down here, 11:20. It says, and some of them were in Cyprus and Cyrene, which, so they telling you they was in these two locations over there. And when they would come to Antioch, that's why they called them Christians. That's why they were calling them stupid. Who? Grecians. He spake unto the Grecians, preaching Yahweh the Messiah. And they calling them Christians, calling them stupid. This is what they was doing. Why? Why were these people that was under this captivity, why was they calling themselves Greeks? Well, Paul had to use the word Greek. Why? So we have to think why. Okay, so what would make them do this? What would make people do this? And as I teach, I tell you, pressure. Same as Satan say, skin for skin. So if they can put the pressure on you, they'll make you switch to whatever they want you to switch to. And we got to see this. We got to see this. Let's look at some of this. We're gonna go to First Maccabee. Let's see the kind of pressure they can put on in what he said. And we don't have to go through the whole thing, but we're just gonna go through the main part. We're gonna go down to Antiochus. It says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom. He had all the slaves under him. He wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people. And as King Epiphany said, I'm a Greek, all y'all are Greeks. Same as we go into slavery, guess what? Many of us last names is named after our slave masters. Same as you have my name Johnson. My name Johnson. My grandfather is out of Jamaica, and out of Johnson. So I guarantee you, he is named after his slave masters. So Johnson is not my actual name that came from over on the ship, but as my forefathers was enslaved, they end up being given the name Johnson. Is the name I have today, proving that slavery is real. So this is what happened. Now you can also see it says, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathens agreed according to the commandments of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented. So this is where that thought came from. Because you'll see as it goes down, he started to where he will kill you if you didn't went on with his laws. That's what was going on. So this is what was happening. So you had either a choice or you were going to die. You had a choice or you were going to die. But now you have barbarians. So, and then we're going to see the difference between these barbarians. Barbarians. So barbarians is different people. These are non-speaking, like let me put it a better way. Dang it. They do not speak Greek, basically. They do not speak Greek whatsoever. So, what do that mean? Grecians was your uppities, but barbarians, more to say, they didn't adhere to the Greek lifestyle or culture. So if you didn't speak Greek, you was a barbarian. Basically, unwise, low culture. Meaning what? Let's look at some of these again. We got to see, because that's literally how they seen the separation in people. If you didn't speak Greek, you're basically the low life in their culture. So let's go to 1 Corinthians. Let's look at some of this. We got to look at some of this. And we got to see why he called them Greeks and barbarians, and why, because we got to understand what he's saying. Let's look at 14 and 11. It says, therefore, if ye know not the meaning of the voice, I shall be unto him that speak a barbarian. Okay, I can't help it when, but he kind of funny when he says that. And he said, and he that speaks shall be a barbarian unto me. That's Paul talking to him. So therefore, know not the meaning of the voice. I shall be unto him that speak a barbarian, unwise. And he shall speak, and when he speak, he gonna be a barbarian to him. He gonna be unwise to him too. Technically, all he's saying. Let's look at this again. We're gonna see this where they using this, because he's saying, as he's saying even in the verse, is to the Greeks, the ones who speak the language, and then to the barbarians, the ones who they figure is unwise. You lower class. So that's how they look at it. And even though they're not lower class, but they lower class because you don't speak the language. You don't speak the language. And as some people out there tell you, oh, if you don't speak Greek, if you don't speak Hebrew, you will not understand the Bible. Please. But let's go to 27. Let's look at 27, Acts 27. We're going to look at verse 2. And it says, enter into the ship of Anathema. He launched. Wait a minute, I don't know if I had this right verse. think Acts 27. I think I have the wrong verse. This is the wrong verse. I'm trying to think here. Well, let me go to the other verse until I find this other verse, the one I want you to actually see. So first let's go over here to Colossians 3:9. Let's go to Colossians 3:9 and not pull that other verse. 3:9, and we gotta go to 11. 3:9 into 11. It says, lie not one to another. So don't be lying to one another, seeing that ye have puffed up the old man with your deeds, meaning being very blunt, and have put on the new man and have renewed in knowledge, telling you about the knowledge, after the image of him that created him. So he's talking about, so now the knowledge that he came and he brought and he had gave you, you need to be renewed in your mind. That's all he's saying. So now he goes on where people tell you to lie. So this is why he says that. Where there is neither Greek, Hellenist, Grecian, nor Jew, or a regular brother who know he's a Jew, circumcision or uncircumcision. It don't matter where you trying to act like you from. You have light-skinned brothers dislike dark-skinned brothers. You got just silliness out. We have more problems than the law allow, and we literally get down to this. And then watch this. You have barbarians and Scythians. Paul is just tearing it down to the minutest piece. And then he says, bond nor free, but Christ is all in all. So he don't care, he can care less. You can sit there and say whatever you want to say over here, and you can sit there and say whatever you want to say over there. You're all the same. What? Those 12 tribes. That's what he's saying. He's not talking, remember, we already defined the world. But he's saying he can care less where you sitting there saying because you are Scythian, you think you uppity. And you think you better than this barbarian because you call him, oh, he don't speak the language. So since he don't speak the language, and I can go speak to these big time people over here, but he can't speak it. We do that today. We do this today. So this is where the problem is. This is where the problem is. So let's look at this. Let's go back in and we got to put this in there. So we have to put this in there and we got to look at Hellenists and Grecians. We're going to put in Acts 9:29, 11:20, First Maccabees 1:41. That lets you know what they are. And do not speak Greek are the unwise. That's how they see them. So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians. We're going to go to 14:11, and Colossians 3:9-11. So this is what the problem is. So we need to make sure we highlight debtor. We got to highlight Greeks and barbarians. And technically we still did, and that's still covering the wise and the unwise. So we just clarifying it. So all we did is clarify those. So we should be good right there. We should be good right there. So let's see, I got time to push through to where we can push through because we have the next 4 verses is just a read through. So we can push through those and go through it and get to the main ones. So we're going to look at verse 15. It says, so as much as me in is, I am ready to preach the message to you that are at Rome also. So he's ready to preach the message to you that are at Rome also. Verse 16, for I am not ashamed of the message of Christ. Why? For it is the power of Yahweh unto salvation to everyone that believeth. So all that believe it and have faith in what it says, you're good. To the Jew first, and also to the Greeks. So the Greek, he's not talking about Greeks as it is, he's talking about the Hellenists. So if you want to put that in there, you can go in later and you can take this, you can take that part here. Well, we can do this here just to make sure that we won't have nobody having no issues to where you just have that there. And then you just want to mark this. So you can actually do that. But you just doing that in there, making sure that your thing is marked. So now you can use this for other stuff, but mainly you focusing in on what's going on. Everybody knows what salvation is, so we don't want to go in and do all this. Same thing with belief, we know that's faith. So if you want that in there, then the easiest way to do it is you want to go up and you want to grab it from up here, which you have to go up there and I have it. Actually, yes, I have to go for a long way. So you have to go up. So I have to go up and way up here and grab this. But I'm not going to actually do it. So, and let me see. Yeah. So basically, let me go down. 15, 16. Yeah. So now let me go to 17. And it says, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. It is written, and just shall live by faith. Now, I don't have that in there, but what you do, you want to put this in there, righteousness. Just put in righteousness. Just put in righteousness. We're going to put in righteousness, put in Deuteronomy 20, 24, 6, 24, 25. So we can see what righteousness is. And let's go there. And the reason I put there, because some people might be new, but I want to make sure you know what righteousness is. And we're going to look at it real quick to find out what righteousness is, then we're going to come right back. So we want to know what it is. So let's go to Deuteronomy and let's see what righteousness is. We put in 6, 24 and 25. And let's look at what righteousness is. It says, and the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes. So the Lord commanded us to do all the statutes to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. It shall be our righteousness. Same as what Paul talking about. If we observe, providing we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God as he have commanded us. That's why I just said, just put that there the way you have it. So when you're looking in there, you already know if somebody asks you if you're doing a study, you can go right to it. You can pull that key right. So So what is right? Well, righteousness, I think, is, see, as soon as somebody say, well, I think righteousness is just, we just doing, no, let me show you what righteousness is according to the laws of God. And then that'll clear everything up. So that's what that is. So now we're going to go to verse 18, and it says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. We're going to find out what that is. So we got to see what that unrighteousness is. Who holdeth to the truth in, see, who hold to the truth in unrighteousness. They hold to the truth in unrighteousness, and it's talking about but being revealed. So we got to understand again what that's saying. So we're going to look at something, unrighteousness. And we're going to put, so we want to see what that is, how that look. And that's 2:10 through 14. Uh-oh, what in the world happened? I don't know what happened. Well, let me put that in again. In second, 2:10 through 14. Okay, so let's go over there and look at it, and then we're gonna come back. Gonna look at it real quick, come back. Excuse me. So let's go to 2 Thessalonians. Let's look at this. And you can see Paul, he actually repeats himself many times, but he mainly is honing in on just driving home the thought. No matter where he goes, he's driving home the same thought, and many times he'll just change the way he actually presented it. So we're going to look at 2:10. We're going to go down to, well, we need to see what unrighteousness is. We need to see what that is. It says, in all deceivableness and of unrighteousness, so everything deceivable of unrighteousness, in them that perish, because, and as he's just telling you right there, ungodliness, who's not holding to the truth, you're going to have wrath come. Who perish because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause, Yahweh shall send them strong delusions, which is going to give you a lying spirit, that they should believe the lie, because now you're going to believe that lying spirit. That they might be damned who believe not the truth, but that's what he's saying over here, what Paul's still talking about, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. They having that pleasure in unrighteousness. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chose you to salvation through sanctification, through separation of the spirit in belief in faith of the truth, whereunto ye call you by our message, to the obtaining of the glory of Yahweh the Messiah. So you're making that pretty much clear. So this is why we have to understand what's going on. This is why we have to understand what's happening. So we're looking at these things, understanding what's going on, and getting a better understanding on how he actually ran this. So we got to look at another part where he's going to go down, and we're looking at 18, but now we have the biggest part where most people, again, where you get these craziness, where all these crazy doctrines comes up. A lot of crazy doctrines comes up from here, and we got to see how that actually goes. So it says, because that which may be known of God is manifest. It's manifest. And then most people tell you, oh, he manifests into flesh. Meaning and they saying he turned into flesh. That's what they saying. So he was so known. So they're saying maybe known of God is made known in them, through what? Through Christ. For God hath showed it unto them. Now, we got to understand what manifest means. We need to understand what manifest means, because many people, They'll tell you manifest means they turned into, they morphosized into something. So we need to understand what manifest means. And then we also look at manifestation also, just to make sure we'll stay clear. So actually, I'm gonna put in both words just to make sure we'll be clear to where we'll be clear anytime. So first, what we got to do, we got to go back over and we're gonna look at the scriptures to show you what it actually means. We're gonna go back to the scriptures and look at what it means, and it just means made known. And this is where people have a problem with, because they, oh no, not made known. I mean, he turned into something. It's the silliness on what they do. So we're going to go to Romans. Let's look at Romans, and we're going to look at chapter 10 and 20. Chapter 10 and verse 20. And let's look at this real close. And it says, but Elias is very bold and said, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made known unto them that asked not after me. I was made manifest unto them that asked not of me. Just making sure this is clear. He's making sure this is clear. Let's look at another one. We're going to go to 2 Corinthians. Chapter 5, verse 11. Knowing therefore the terror of Yahweh, we persuade men. We persuade men. How you going to do it? In conversation. You got to do that in conversation. But we are made known unto God. We are made manifest. You ain't going to turn into something, you made known unto God. And I trust also are made known in your conscience. It's telling you every time. You're made known in these. This is what you have to look at. Now watch this. Let's go to John 17. We're going to look at some manifestations. John 17. And we're going to go down to verse 6. I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou givest me out of the world. Thine there they were, and thou givest them to me, and they kept thy word. So, what is this manifest? We're going to find out there, because I'm going to put it over there. So, what you do is the easiest way to simplify this out. I have made apparent, he made apparent, or I have to make apparent thy name. Because that's all that's really saying. Apparent, made known. I am made apparent thy name unto men which thou givest out of the world. That's all he's saying. We're going to look at some more. We're going to look at some more illustrations of that. Let's go to Romans 3 and 21. 3:21. And actually, it's already got a hit because it'll do them all. It says, but now the righteousness of Yahweh without the law is apparent, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. Pretty much point blank. Let's look at it. Let's look at another part of this. We're going to go to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy 3:16. 1 Timothy 3:16. It says, and without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was made known in the flesh. How? Because his spirit rested on a man. Justified, how? In the spirit. Why? Because it rested on Yahweh. Seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, to the Hellenists, believed on in the world to all Israel, received up in glory. It's pretty much making that pretty clear. Let's look at another one, 1 Timothy 5:25. 1 Timothy 5:25. Likewise, also the good works of some are made known beforehand, and they that are otherwise cannot be hid. Pretty straightforward, pretty blunt. Pretty straightforward, pretty blunt. We have another example because I'm doing more of those examples because this is a problem area for many people where people try to make them see something that's not actually there. 4:13, it says, neither is there any creature that is not made known in his sight, that is not manifest. Now turning it into something is crazy. It just said not made known in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. He's making this, and here's go another proof here. We're gonna look at Ecclesiastes. We're gonna go there and pull a verse. We're gonna pull 3:18, and it says, "I said in my heart concerning the state of the sons of men, that God might make known them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts." If he can make known to God. So this is basically all he was saying the entire time. But people will sit there and they use manifest and they go to this monster thing and they believe that it's something that's otherwise. So we're going to look at manifest. We're going to use Romans 20, 10 and 20, 2 Corinthians 5:11. Oh, and to get this manifestation, we're going to use John 17:6, Romans 3:21, 1 Timothy 3:16. And and actually I do this to make sure, and we go, it's still under manifestation, but we're gonna do evident. I like to do that because it's still under manifestation. And what we're gonna do here is 1 Timothy 5:25. Why do I do that? Because it's just singling out what we want there. And then not make known. Hebrews 4:13. And then prove. I'm just separating them. Ecclesiastes 3:18. So that's what we did there. That is how we do that there. So then if you need to go back, you can go back and you can take care of that. Right now, I want to see if there's any questions or anything. And right now, we clear on that. So if we have any questions, we can take care of the questions. If not, I have Elder Smith. Elder Smith?
Yes, Elder. Was the verse or scripture for barbarian you was looking for Acts 28:4?
Acts, let me go back up to it. Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, let me go to it. I'm glad you reminded me. Acts 28:4. Let me go there real quick. And yep, that is it. Acts 28:4. When the barbarian saw the venomous beast hanged on his hand, yep, that's it. That is the one. And actually, in Elder Smith had the Acts, and it's 28 verse 4. I don't know what I did on that one. So I do appreciate it. Thank you, Elder. So now if we have any questions, we can post them in the chat, or put your hand up over in the chat inside the Zoom, or you can actually post it over here on YouTube if you have any questions. And okay, so I don't understand where they're neither Greek nor Jew. We're going through Romans, and like I said, and I believe I made pretty clear the first time. I don't technically do teaching based on what people tell me what to do. I teach on what he leads me to. But with this here, pretty much gave you the straightforward answer to what a Greek is and what a Jew is. So I pretty much gave you that, and you can look at verse 14, and it tells you exactly what it is. So I'm not understanding your question there. Because if it tells you that right there, what a barbarian is, what a Jew is, I don't know a part of you missing. So do we have any other questions based on the lesson? Any other questions? And it looked like we're pretty good. So with that, we're going to pick this back up. We'll be going back through this. We're going to be picking this back up on Romans. We'll be going through this on Sunday. Pick it up on Sunday. But once September hits, this day will be a weekly scripture Bible study, which we'll be going through the study on that one, which we'll be going through quite a bit. But that one, actually, you will be learning a lot of stuff going through it. So hopefully that you guys go through it with us, and you continually go through it, and make sure that each time you get a chance, make sure you study and look at these here in the workbook and see what keys that you might have. Now, on the next one, what I am going to do, I am going to be putting things in the preceptual paper to make sure that everybody understands how that works over there. Because we do have some people have the electronic version of the preceptor, which they'll do it over there. But if you have the workbook, you can put it in the workbook and you can do it there. But you'll see exactly how to use it. So that's what we're going to be doing. But we're going to be picking up a lot of verses, because now, once Paul goes into his flow, we can do a lot of this stuff. We can be hitting 5, 6, 7, 8 verses in one day. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we'll be picking this up on Sunday. So with that, which book? I'm not sure what book you're talking about, actually, so I'm not sure what book you have. Let me see, can I do this? Let me see if I can do this. I will do it right here. So let me see if I can do this here, because I'm not sure which book you're looking for. So I'm just going to put both there, and hopefully this can work that out. And this should work that one out. Okay, so that's the Israelite Weekly Study. And then you have Romans Workbook, the one that you've seen us doing. Yeah, that one. And that one is this one. So both of them you can find right there on Lulu. So those are it. So hopefully, as you guys continue, as I said, do your studies. But that Israel, that work, that's the weekly study, that's gonna grow your knowledge in the Bible tremendously. But the main thing is to make sure that you do your studies besides just looking to fill in what I put there. We want to make sure we're doing the studying. So if we look like we don't have no other questions to where we'll be going out. And I want to make sure that it looked like, yeah, we have no other questions. So since we have no other questions, it looks like we're going to go out. I'm trying to check on the other side, make sure there's none in here. Yeah, we have none in here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we'll bow out. And until, you join with us this Saturday, I do know, I believe Elder T is teaching, I believe tomorrow, but I do know Elder Jenkins will be teaching. Actually, it's a real good lesson. You have one coming out this Friday. So, and then we have the one on Saturday, and then we'll be doing Romans on Sunday. We'll be picking this Romans up. Might be able to pick it up a little bit longer. So until then, I appreciate everybody joining in with us. So until next time, I bid everybody a shalom.